Alright, we got a new character, so you know what that means. It's time to see where they've landed on the tier list, but this is a big one, okay? This character introduces the highest damage potential. Yes, literally the new highest damage team in the entire game, but there is some disclaimers that need to be put with that, okay? So don't get too crazy, okay? We're going to be going over the character, the weapon situation, which is another sort of unfortunate situation because the synergy with this weapon is so insane for the character that you kind of want it, but do you need it, etc, etc. We're obviously going to be going over the builds and whatnot, but there's a lot to unpack here, so let's go ahead and get into this thing. Now first, the placement. Alice lands here at tier 0.5, which might be controversial for some of you, especially since I just said that she's on one of the teams with the highest damage potential in the entire game, right? So how does that happen? Well, the end game that's going to be favoring her has not come out yet, and obviously, when you get an endgame that favors her, you're going to see a boost to her damage potential when she's at 0.5, and you might not necessarily see that for her competition up here at tier 0, so they're going to close the gap here, and you might end up seeing Alice move up to tier 0. Pride1 even said that in their changelog over here, right? But there are some very important things to be aware of with the damage potential for this team, and it's only one team that could do this. Alice, Jane Doe, and Yuzuha. And if a single one of them is not on the team, then the damage potential falls off like a stone. And if you don't have them at Mindscape 2 with their signatures, you can't reach the damage potential that people have been talking about. Essentially, this team with full Mindscape 2 and signatures is outperforming M6 full, like everything, like fully decked out Miyabi teams. It's crazy. So we're talking about a very, very niche situation, and obviously the ranking here is not based on M2 S1. Like, this is based on literally M0, like with no signature, and her signature is absolutely insane for her. Look at this here. It needs to be noted that you're going to be looking at this compared to Fusion Compiler, because this is the standard banner weapon comparison. The gold number here, this is going to be with solo numbers, and this is the team numbers here in purple. The team that they used for the calculations was using Vivian, Yuzuha, and of course Alice. I think that's a very, very like safe, fair, easy, consistent team to use for the calculations, so that's good. But when you compare this, like, you're going to see the classic Zenless Zone 0 25% tax that you see with all of these top tier DPS that have been coming out here. You see the exact same thing going on with like the next best 4-star or standard banner option with all of these characters here, including Evelyn. Like it's pretty much like it's just a joke, right? It's not exactly 25%, but it is roughly around 25% like every single time. Even Hugo's situation is basically like that. You see the same situation with Alice. However, with Alice, her situation's a little bit different because the stuff you get from this weapon helps you build her so much, giving you a boost that you kind of like can't see written down here when you see these calculations. You're getting so much out of these signature weapons sometimes that it can take almost like a mid-tier build all the way up to like a good or even great build sometimes, because you're able to flesh out the stats that you needed from the build that you may have not been getting from, let's say, a standard banner weapon, or let's say like a 4-star A-rank weapon. And this synergy on this weapon is nuts. Look at what she gets. Alice's signature weapon provides her with up to 60 anomaly mastery, translating to 96 anomaly proficiency. More than a main stat. Okay, keep that in mind. That is more than a main stat from a drive disc, okay? With her core passive effect, as well as a 30% attack and 40% physical damage bonus on top of high base attack. It's such a good stat stick for her that it's her best choice bar none. They didn't even need to include that last part. That's a signature weapon like thing. Like that's always going to be the case. So this weapon not only improves like the damage that you would see on like a damage calculation, but it also literally gives you so much that she needs when you are building, and that is something that you don't always get to factor in when you're doing these type of calcs. It's actually kind of a situation of where you can't see it written down here, but this weapon is actually like better than what these numbers will show in some cases. But obviously not everybody can get the signature weapon, which is understandable. So if you're not going for that, you could obviously use Jane's weapon. This is a good improvement upon Fusion Compiler, which Fusion Compiler is the standard banner S rank weapon. This is accessible to everybody if they saved up enough, for example. And obviously you can get Weeping Gemini. This is available to everyone through the in-game shop, right? And this is technically an improvement upon the Battle Pass weapon, according to the calculations here. They're roughly the same, not that far off, not much, not a ton really, right? So Weeping Gemini is, I think, the baseline here, a good baseline. Don't feel bad if you're using this. I think most people in the community will be using the Weeping Gemini unless they want to feel compelled to like move up to the Fusion Compiler, which is, again, not too much bigger. So if you're not really using Weeping Gemini, the next best thing is to pretty much go for a signature weapon. And I think the best one we have here is to go for Alice's weapon, because it can also be used on Jane as well. All right, so for the build itself, as far as the drive discs are concerned, you're pretty much set in stone with Fanged Metal, the 4-piece. And then for the 2-piece, you have options with like Faithin's Melody, which I think many people are going to use. It's the most recommended one that you're going to see. You're going to have Puffer Electro as well, Freedom Blues, Astro Voice, stuff like that. Now for the stats. Okay, for disc 4, we're going to go here with Anomaly Proficiency or Attack. Let's be honest, Anomaly Proficiency. Now disc 5, you're going to go with Pen Ratio or Physical Damage or Attack Percent. Obviously, main stats are going to be the important ones here with this. I think many of us are going to lean towards Pen Ratio and Physical Damage if we have the option to be able to do that, as long as our substats are good enough for that. And the last one is phoned in before any of you even started thinking about building. Anomaly Mastery. This one is set in stone. And then substats, Anomaly Proficiency, of course, Attack Percent, Pen, Attack. Anomaly Proficiency is key, though. For some important stats to take a look at Anomaly Proficiency, you're going to want to aim for somewhere in like the 330 to 420 plus range. For Anomaly Mastery, 184 plus. 60 higher in combat with her signature, by the way, so keep that in mind. All right, so character synergy, team building, etc., etc. Vivian, Nanagi, Bernice, Grace. These are heavy hitters with Alice, because they're able to be anomaly synergetic, building up a bunch of anomalies. And if you're into disorder at all, obviously all of these characters love to hang out with Alice, because they're able to help you get another anomaly character on the team that can help build up and get you those disorders. Yuzaha. Okay, listen, this character is so good with Alice, Jesus Christ. Now, you do have Astra, Nicole, and Lucy to slot in if you needed that, but Yuzaha is like the support for her, right? Now, let's go ahead and go straight into the actual teams itself here. Her best teams are going to be with Alice, Vivian, Yanagi, and Bernice. And then Yuzaha, right? You're going to see Vivian is favored in this situation over Yanagi and Bernice, and you're going to see Astra, Yao, and Nicole are not favored as highly as Yuzaha. You're going to see a Jane team down here, which I'm sure a lot of people are interested in. Why didn't you see it first? Why didn't you see it put as best team? Well, it's because it's at M0 without signature weapons. The more you invest into Alice and Jane and Yuzaha, when pairing them together, the more you will get out of them. And it's really at Mindscape 2, especially with like Jane and Alice, and Yuzaha, actually her M2 is insane as well, that like you really start to get a huge power spike on this team. At M0, it's not necessarily going to be the best team, right? Obviously, play style and skill set are going to be involved with this. By the way, that's not to say that the Jane and Alice team are bad. They're insane, but it's just not necessarily quite as good, or maybe quite as consistent as maybe the Vivian team was for them. You also see double support team with Astra and Yuzaha, and you see maybe Nicole and Yuzaha as well. Double support team, hyper carry style, play style obviously works very well. I'm going to tell you, this is a very fun team, though. The Jane dual DPS quick swap team is very, very fun. This is my favorite one to use personally, just because it's just nutty. It's just fun. You're just doing a bunch of, you're always doing stuff. And with someone that is like ADHD like I do, I love that. You know what I'm saying? Now you have a free-to-play option team here with Grace. She's here with Nicole and Lucy as like free-to-play options with Alice, because she's a standard banner character. You've had character selectors along the way up to this point. Now let's take a quick peek at some Bang Boo recommendations here. We have Robin recommended for a Vivian team, Rocket Boo recommended for when you have 2 fire agents on the team, Red Mucus, I always call him Red Mucus, I'm sorry, it's just funny. Recommended when you have 2 Sons of Kaladin agents on the same team, Lucky Boo with the physical agents on the same team, Miss Esme for extra healing and energy regen with Yuzaha, and then Snap for a general extra damage alternative. I've never seen this many Bang Boo recommendations for a character ever, Jesus Christ, but there are some recommendations for you in case you wanted them based on the teams that you could set up for her. Now, don't forget that just because you didn't see a team there doesn't mean you can't build it, okay? Like, this character, Alice, actually has anomaly synergies and disorder synergy that can even pair with Miyabi, okay? It just might not have as good of synergy for Miyabi as, let's say, somebody like Yanagi or maybe a Vivian or something like that. So maybe that's why you might not see them on that list, because it's not necessarily their best pairing, for example. But like I said, this is an anomaly build-up character that actually is able to trigger disorder, like technically on her own, kind of like Yanagi, maybe not built to be that type of character, but technically it works. There's more value than meets the eye with this character. Alright, so should you pull her? Is she worth the pull? That's really going to be up to you, right? That's why I brought up a lot of this different stuff. Do you like her playstyle? Do you like quick swapping? I mean, a lot of the top tier characters are quick swap style, but do you even like anomaly and disorders, or are you more of a, like, traditionalist DPS style character with your DPS characters, right? Also, her damage potential that people have been buzzing around, like, yes, she's still great at M0. Keep that in mind. She might even potentially move up, potentially to tier 0 next, like, update. Dude, that could happen. But be aware that she's not necessarily the talk of the town at M0. With her Jane and with her Yuzuha team at like M2 with signatures, that's when things really start to change. That's when they can outperform a full M6 Miyabi team. Keep that in mind. We're talking about pretty much some whale type of stuff, or if you're like more casual, like low spender, or even free to play, you're talking about some vertical investment stuff that is possible. M2 with signatures, especially since Jane has been out for so long. Some of you might already have that. Some of you, like myself, I already have a M2 user. All I would need is like her sig now, right? So it's not that big of a deal like for some of us, but it is a pretty big investment to get into for a very, very specific niche team. Now, she does have more value than meets the eye with like other synergies with other characters, but it's not necessarily as impactful as some of the other characters we've seen along the way that could do that, like maybe a Vivian or maybe a Yanagi. So her value mainly is with like dual DPS and with like kind of like more selfish DPS style teams, at least right now. And so I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. I still think she's incredibly good. I still think she's nuts. But is she like the best? No. But she could be the best. And that's really up to you whether you want to invest into that or not. So keep in mind, again, M0, very valuable, but not literally the best character in the game at M0. And real quick, I gotta say, it's good seeing Jane move up, but man, like it still feels a little weird seeing her next to Piper. Their stocks both go up, but if we end up seeing Alice eventually move up to tier 0, potentially, if endgame favors her that much coming up soon here, it would be dope if we could see Jane Doe, because stocks would go up again, right? If we could see at least Jane Doe maybe move up to tier 0.5. Finally have that moment to shine, right? That moment to be like, hey, don't call it a comeback. I've been here all year, baby. So let me know if you're pulling Alice. Let me know if you're pulling that SIG, or if you're investing into this crazy cracked team. Let me know if you're pulling that, dude, that summer skin. What the heck? Are you pulling the feet? Dude, there's so much crazy stuff. Zenless Zone Zero kind of like popping off a little bit right now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.